Well, good morning, and welcome to the Morning Report. My name is Willie Lawson. The Morning Report is a production of FightBackMedia.com, 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 and FightBackMediaTV.com. We are thrilled that you are with us this wonderful, wonderful day. It's about to get soggy here in West Central Florida and Florida as a whole. They tell me we got rain all day, rain all day, rain all day for the next 3 or 4 days. So it's about to get a little soggy. Now, personally, I don't mind the rain as long as it's within the hours of like 12 midnight and 5 a.m. No problem. But you know what? We can't order it up like that. There is no Uber rain. It's like we'll just order our Uber rain or our like Uber Eats. This is going to rain whenever it's going to rain. And listen, if you were in an area that might be prone to floods, make preparations because it's going to rain a lot. It's going to rain a lot in a little bit. So go ahead and do that. But I I'm like my granddaddy. You know, it's been a long time since it rained. We really need rain, uh, and we do. We do. This just a geography lesson for a lot of you. Um, this part of Florida, we can't dig down deep and get groundwater because that's not where our groundwater comes from. Our groundwater, we don't really have much groundwater. Pretty much all of our water comes from the sky. That's where the water comes from. That's filled with the reservoirs and the like. There's no deep water wells here in Florida, especially on the peninsula. And where we are here in West Central Florida, we are off the peninsula, so we're just sort of floating, right? Floating over the sea. Um, so in order for us to have adequate water, it's got to rain. It's got to rain. And this is the time of year it rains. This was when we were the sunshine state. This is when it's 97 degrees and we get rain. And we get torrential rain, fortunately. So as long as it's not a hurricane or a wind event, it's just a rain event, we do fine. Anyway, for those of you who are worrying, as long as it's just rain, we're fine. Rain events are just fine. It's just when it gets to be a wind event, you get problems. All right, anyway, let's get started with the broadcast. Oh, before we go on, you guys know that I've been mentioning using vMix, and I thought that maybe I had done something crazy, like actually paid for it, but I haven't. This is a trial version, and this trial version is going to expire on the 23rd, because in order to buy the lowest tier vMix, it's $350. I like it. It's smooth. And I know some of you are saying, use OBS. OBS works, but the learning curve on OBS is much higher than vMix. So maybe I will. Maybe I will. Maybe it's worth $350 to know. In any case, let's go. I've fiddle farted around long enough. Let's go ahead and get started. Um, they like to tell us that somehow Joe Biden, if you listen to the left, somehow Joe Biden is pro-Israel, right? This administration is pro-Israel. He is genocide Joe, according to those on the left, right? Here's the reality. And another example on how the Biden administration has been looking to impede Israel, the Israeli war effort, in its fight against Hamas, the United Nations, hang on a second, the United Nations Security Council voted on Monday to pass a ceasefire resolution that was drafted by the United States. 14 out of 15 members voted in favor, while Russia, strangely enough, abstained. Such a resolution calls for a ceasefire even without the immediate release of all of the hostages that Hamas took as a part of the October 7th attack that they perpetrated against Israel. Those members voting in favor included China, France, United Kingdom, the United States, Algeria, Ecuador, Guyana. Sorry, it's like all Guana to me. Japan, Malta, Mozambique, South Korea, Sierra Leone, Slovenia, and Switzerland. Caroline Glick tweeted this: "The administration is escalating its war against Israel. This morning, the U.S. will bring this resolution to a vote in the UN Security Council. Its purpose is to force Israel to capitulate to Hamas, Haran, and lose the war, accomplishing none of its goals, leaving Hamas in power." Leaving most of the hostages in Gaza, ensuring Gaza is in a perpetual threat to Israel, in joining forthwith by Judea and Samaria in a state whose sole purpose is to annihilate the Jewish state. Blinken made Gantz resign from the government last night to foment mass chaos on the streets throughout the left's shock forces. He arrives here today to lay down the law to Netanyahu and give him marching orders to his partners here. Now, here's what's going to happen when Blinken, the Secretary of State of the United States, tries to lay down the law to Netanyahu. Netanyahu's going to sit in his chair and go, "Get out. Get out." That's what's going to happen. That's what should happen. It's exactly what should happen. This idea that this dude is Genocide Joe. What Joe Biden understands is that there are a lot of people who would vote for him who are not happy that he's supporting. That he seems to be supporting Israel. And he'll do anything. Any sneaky, underhanded, backbiting, backroom deal. So later they can take, take credit for it. Oh, well, you see, you wanted a ceasefire and we brought you a ceasefire. We didn't bring you crap. The idea is they're trying to force Israel's hand. But what we know, and especially if you're a Christian, what you also know is that this is going to be on the wrong side of history. This is going to be on the wrong side of history. That's what you know. And Netanyahu, I don't believe, is going to go for it. Of a particular concern of the resolution involves how Phase 1 does not call for the release of all the hostages or the remains of the killed hostages. That phase calls for with added emphasis. It's not until Phase 2 that the rest of the hostages are to be released. It reads that upon the agreement of the parties, a permanent end to hostilities in exchange for release of all other hostages still in Gaza, and the full withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. Here's how it reads now. An immediate, full, and complete ceasefire with the release of hostages, Palestinian hostages, including women, the elderly, and the wounded, and return of the remains of some hostages who have been killed. The exchange of Palestinian prisoners, withdrawal of Israeli forces from the populated areas of Gaza, the return of Palestinian civilians to their homes and neighborhoods in all areas of Gaza, including the north, as well as the safe and effective distribution of humanitarian assistance at scale throughout the Gaza Strip to all Palestinian civilians who need it, including housing units delivered by the international community. What this resolution does is put the whole Gaza area back like it was, without any regime change. Been saying this for years. This is why we got to get the UN out of here. This resolution also includes a phase committed to a, quote, reconstruction plan for Gaza, which Joe Biden himself promoted when announcing the proposal on May 31st, making clear that it will be funded by American taxpayers. So American taxpayers are going to go into Gaza and build the infrastructure that Hamas needs to build if Hamas is going to be in charge of that government. So toward the end of the resolution is another Democrat talking point that calls for a two-state solution, an unwavering commitment to the vision of the two-state solution where two democratic states, Israel and Palestine, live side by side in peace within secure and recognized borders, consistent with international law and relevant UN resolutions, and this in regard stresses the importance of unifying the Gaza Strip with the West Bank under Palestinian Authority is mentioned. This is the wrong side of history. And I can't believe for a second Netanyahu is going to go for it, because Netanyahu has already said that there will be no two-state solutions. But does the UN have teeth? So what happens when Israel says, get out? What happens when that happens? What are they going to do? Are they going to send in UN troops? If they send in UN troops, will some of those troops be from the United States? If you don't think that we need to make some big changes and big changes fast, this ought to alarm you. Algerian Ambassador Amar Benjama said that his compatriots deeply feel the suffering of the Palestinians with their own history of struggle against colonial occupation. This is this idea that somehow a country or a piece of land that the Israelis have existed on for time and tradition, suddenly in this little piece of land, suddenly they are the colonizers. They are the oppressors. How many places in the world can you go to synagogue and attend a mosque? You go to a mosque or a cathedral. How many places in the world can that happen? The United States and Israel. That crap barely happens in Europe. It doesn't happen at all in Iran. There are no synagogues in Iran. There's no churches or cathedrals in Iran. So anyway, as a free and dignified people, the Palestinians will never accept living under occupation. They're not under occupation. Their problem is Hamas. See, this is the sort of crap that gets out, that gets put on Twitter, and somehow some of these young people who are still wet behind the ears believe it's truth. There is no occupation. There's no colonization. If Hamas doesn't attack Israel on October 7th, we're not talking about any of this. If Hamas doesn't attack Israel on October 7th, we're not talking about any of this. And of course, the Algerian ambassador tossed in at the end of his statement, Palestinian lives matter. What does that tell you? All of this crap is being put on by the same group of people. Yes, George Soros, all of them, the World Economic Forum, all of these people. It's all the same. All the same crap. So this is not the first time, unfortunately, that the United States has taken a problematic action against Israel at the United Nations. What was once more so a failure of bold leadership in favor of Israel has turned into anti-Israel sentiments on display. Back in late March, the United States chose to abstain rather than to veto a ceasefire proposal. While the move was met with criticism, the White House National Security Communication Advisor John Kirby actually spun the abstention as a pro-Israel move. Although the United States in April vetoed allowing the Palestinian territories to gain membership, The U.S. Deputy Ambassador Robert Wood still stressed support for a two-state solution. The anti-Israel United Nations recognized the state of Palestine last month. The U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield said that Israel has accepted the proposal. The date in question referenced in the proposal is May 31st, when Biden announced that those three phases, though there was some pushback from Israel at the time regarding Biden's description of the deal being not accurate. The UN News report also highlights how Israel remains committed to its aims of bringing hostages home and dismantling Hamas with added emphasis. The representative of Israel, Ruth Shapir bin Naftali, let's just call him bin Naftali, how about that, says her country goals have been very clear since the first few days following the October 7th, oh, excuse me, thought that was my co-host down there, the October 7th attacks to bring all our hostages back home and dismantle Hamas, and to ensure Gaza does not pose a threat to Israel in the future. We have echoed several times in this very chamber, these goals are met, the war will end. She added, noting that 120 hostages remain in captivity, and Hamas continues firing rockets into Israeli towns and cities. She called for more pressure on Hamas, stating that although 3 resolutions have been adopted by the Security Council calling for hostages to be released, none of them have been freed as a result. So Hamas is taking some of these resolutions and they're going, get out. But now Israel's supposed to. You know why? Because Israel's the adults, and Israel's are less scary. Some of these places are terrified that if they go against Hamas, they go against the Iran, that they'll have trouble in their own country. And what they don't want is that. So they want to make sure that they are on the side of Iran, Hamas, all these terrorist organizations, because they don't want crap in their own country, because they're cowards. The pressure is on the terrorists. The pressure on the terrorists should have begun long ago, but it's still not too late. Must begin now, she added. We will continue until all the hostages are returned and until Hamas military and governing capabilities are dismantled. Israel will not engage in meaningless and endless negotiations which can be exploited by Hamas as a means to stall for time. That the resolution has reportedly already been welcomed by Hamas, according to Reuters, should give pause, especially with the criticism that have already been laid out. While such a resolution was being worked on, IDF carried out a mission to rescue 4 of the hostages that Hamas terrorists took on October 7th. The IDF went through with such a mission in spite of rather than the Biden administration's role. So the administration still looks to try to take credit. Anyway, American hostages still remain in captivity. American hostages still remain in captivity. American hostages remain in captivity, and the American administration is pushing a resolution in the United Nations that says, no, you don't have to release them right now. You know, you can wait until later. You know what? We'll follow the story, and we will, and as things develop, we'll of course talk to you about it. Right now, I want to tell you about something. You know, if you listen to these kind of stories and you read them and you wonder, the only thing you can think about is this: outrage must now be my love language. It must be my love language. If you want to get this T-shirt, and you should, you most certainly should get this T-shirt. Let's see if I can. There we go. Fight Back Media. Go to https://Willie-Lawson-show-gear-shop creator spring.com. Right there on your screen. Go ahead and write that down. Go ahead, if you have a way to screenshot it, go ahead and screenshot that. Go to the Fight Back Media gear store and buy the shirt. Outrage is my love language, because this is something that you're going to have to wear all the time. So you're going to get two. You can get three. It's Father's Day is coming. Father's Day is coming up on the 14th of June, I guess. Yeah. So go ahead and get this shirt right now. Go ahead. Remember, outrage is my love language. Let's go ahead and do that. All right. Speaking of outrage, this dude right here. This dude. This dude right here. Now, I don't think for a second, and frankly neither should you, that is going to happen to this guy. Oh, I don't want that to be under my name. Go ahead and move. Go ahead and move that. Thank you, because that's not me. But anything's going to happen to that dude. I don't believe that for a second. So there's this sort of conservative wet dream. Let me get some coffee here. That we're going to see this guy frog marched on the prison. I see memes, where Fauci's going to prison, and Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, and none of that's going to happen. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't start paying attention and keep paying attention to what's happening. Now, Chairman Jordan, Jim Jordan, called out Fauci's lies in a letter demanding documents and an interview. So last week, Dr. Anthony Fauci testified before the House Select Committee on Coronavirus Pandemic. During such an appearance, he lied and cast blame on others throughout the entire time. Congress will continue to hear from him if the House Judiciary Committee with Jim Jordan has anything to say about it. In a letter from last Friday, Jordan, who also chairs the Select Committee on the weaponization of the federal government, demanded documents from Fauci and also called him to appear before the subcommittee. In this case, Jordan is expecting answers from Fauci on how he contributed to the government censorship over COVID-19 pandemic. Let's stop there. I don't know how many of you participate in the internet like we do here, but when you posted something about COVID-19, actually anything really, maybe something we use the I word like ivermectin. You use any other sort of treatment, any other sort of idea about COVID-19. Hell, sometimes even saying COVID-19 will get you what you can already see on this YouTube video. You're going to get a little runner on the back, on a little thing on the bottom of the video says, for more information about COVID-19. It's going to say that. Why? Because the algorithm heard me say COVID-19. Heard me say COVID. That's what it heard me say. So it's going to automatically put that up there. It may and will the video be shadow banned? Probably. So if you found a way to watch it, please share it with your friends, because YouTube is not going to let people get. It's not going to show up in people's feed. It's just not. Even if you subscribe to the channel, it's just not going to show up. So if you've sort of found a way to see it, please share it with people. Please. Anyway, we believe that you are in a uniquely positioned to aid the committee's oversight as you served. This is Jordan's letter to the Fauci. As you served as the chief medical advisor to President Biden and chief medical advisor for President Biden's COVID-19 response team, Jordan's letter began in part by mentioning, now, let's be real, he also served as the chief medical advisor for President Trump as well. During your tenure, the response team participated in extensive efforts to unconstitutionally monitor and censor American speech on social media platforms, like this one right here, unless you're watching on Rumble. Okay. Accordingly, we request that you appear for a transcribed interview and produce documents relevant to our investigation. For months, Jordan has been highlighting censorship from the Biden administration in various editions of the, quote, Facebook files. including when it comes to relying on foreign activists who spread misinformation and targeted. They even targeted our friends at Town Hall. On May 1st, the Weaponization Select Subcommittee published a nearly 100-page report entitled The Censorship Industrial Complex: How Top Biden White House Officials Coerce Big Tech to Censor Americans and True Information and Critics of the Biden Administration. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to take this PDF and we're going to put this PDF. It's rather long, so I'm not going to read it to you. But we're going to put this PDF up on the website, or the link up on the website, and it's going to be in the description below. That way, you can have access to it. It's about 98 pages, so you can have access to it. Because I think it's important that I think it's important that you read it, or at least go over it. I really do. So anyway, Fauci's responses from the last week came back to haunt him in Jordan's letter. On June 3rd, 2024, you testified before the Oversight Committee, Subcommittee on Coronavirus Pandemic, that you have kept an open mind about the lab leak theory and did not play a part in the push to downplay the lab leak theory. This is false on its face. Jordan's letter charges into a particular punchy line. It is also contradicted by Facebook's decision to remove content about the lab leak theory. We couldn't even say, because we were told that this was some sort of weird thing that happened from this wet market, right? That got out of hand. And then some people flew over here, and then suddenly the whole world was dying. That this wasn't some lab leak. Why didn't they want to say it was a lab leak? Because the lab leak would have attached Fauci to the Wuhan viral lab. There would have been a connection, and they didn't want that connection at all. And that's what we've already found out. Now, Facebook or Instagram or whomever may not, or YouTube may not like it, but unfortunately and scarily enough, it's the truth. It is the absolute truth. But he definitely did downplay, and social media tried to put the kibosh on the lab leak theory. So it's actually past time. Start finding out the truth, isn't it? Anyway, we got to get out of here. Make room for somebody else. So hey, listen. Until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody. And for goodness sakes, y'all take care of yourself. We will see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.